Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, taking time out of your day for a message of hope. Miracles are unfolding around the world, and the diversity of phenomena is surprising, it's intriguing, and thought-provoking. Why are miracles happening? And what is the message behind them? That's what we'll be exploring today. Welcome to Signs and Miracles in the Modern World. The curtain rises on the transformation of humanity. The information I'm going to share with you today indicates that the signs and miracles flooding the world are signposts for a climactic event promising a bright future for humanity. If we make the right choice, if we make the choice to make sharing and cooperation the foundation of all life on the planet. So welcome to the show. My name is Cielito Pascual, and I am a volunteer with Share International, and I want to thank Share International USA Northeast for organizing this talk. So I encourage you, if what you hear today resonates for you, intrigues you, definitely follow Share International USA Northeast on Facebook to get updates on the next talk. There are talks happening on Zoom all the time, and it's a great way to get to the final stretch of 2020, the year in which we realized how interconnected we are. We are all affected by what happens in the world, no matter where it happens. And hopefully this message will be a message of hope for you. That's the spirit in which I share it. I just want to share a little bit about myself. I grew up hearing miracle stories from my mother, who survived the Japanese occupation of the Philippines during World War II. And she's about to turn 95, which is a miracle in itself. But the stories that she tells of that time are extraordinary, really. And so I grew up really with a curiosity and a real connection to the mystical aspect of Catholicism. Um, and then I heard a talk given by the esoteric author Benjamin Creme many years ago. And what I heard made so much sense that many years later, to this day, first heard him speak in 1988, and to this day, I continue to pay attention to this extraordinary story and to share it at meetings like this. And I'm, as I said, one of many volunteers around the world sharing this powerful story. And so what I'm presenting today in terms of signs and miracles, it's not strictly a religious perspective. Miracles come in all shapes and sizes for all people, no matter what your spiritual background or if you don't have a spiritual background. So let's get started. This is a story for all people. When we call something miraculous, we think of them as events that defy natural law. Well, do we know all there is to know about the laws governing the physical world? In the Ageless Wisdom teachings, which I will say more about in a moment, the teachings recognize that there is a greater reality beyond what our physical senses can register. We're taught in school about solid physical, liquid physical, gaseous physical, and that's it. But there are 4 levels of the physical plane above that scientists are just barely beginning to detect. You might have heard the term dark matter, and I believe that is scientists trying to label etheric level 4, and there's still more levels above that. So when you consider that there's more to physical reality, then if we include this understanding of the etheric planes into what we understand as natural law, it will transform everything that we do on the planet. It will transform how we treat disease, how we generate power, all the ways that we meet our needs without damage to ourselves and to the environment. So everything I'm talking about today is largely found at these websites. My information comes directly from share-international.org. That's a Share International Foundation. They are the stewards of the information coming from that has come from Benjamin Creme. As I mentioned, he's an author and esotericist whose work spanned 40 years. He brought forward into the world the information, the latest information about the emergence of the Masters of Wisdom and Maitreya, the world teacher, and I will talk about that more shortly. There's videos of Benjamin Creme's talks on YouTube. There are books and free downloads at share-ecart.com. And after you listen to me, you can just dive right in, watch videos, read the free downloads, and you'll get a lot of information. We will look at certain kinds of signs and miracles. Of course, I can't cover everything in this show, but I have picked out 3 categories: religious miracles, modern miracles, and miracle encounters. And then we'll connect miracles with the ageless wisdom teachings. We're going to talk about who are the Masters of Wisdom, how are they connected to miracle phenomena. We'll talk about Maitreya, the world teacher, who is the teacher of the Masters of Wisdom. We'll talk about how you can play a part, and I will answer your questions. So we'll start with religious miracles because we traditionally think of miracles as religious, but as you'll see as I go along, they're not strictly religious. But what I'll show you, you're probably already quite familiar with. This is the phenomena of weeping icons. This happens all around the world. It's been happening, I'm sure, for at least a couple decades, if not more, if not for millennia upon millennia. And essentially, what is witnessed is with these devotional figures, there is fluid being exuded from the eyes that represents weeping. This photo comes from the Vietnamese Christian Community Center in Puraka, Australia. We've seen this phenomena all across the United States. We often see local news coverage during the holidays or around Easter. And the phenomenon is known to take place over a few days or even a few months. And the fluid is often determined to be very similar to olive oil or honey or even red colored like blood. And in this image, I believe this statue was exuding a honey-like substance. In the 1990s, the incidence of weeping icons was so prevalent in Italy that an investigation was launched by a consumer protection agency of the government, and the judge ordered an MRI to be performed on the statue. And the results showed no indication of any internal mechanism for the tears. And this is an image shared with me by my friend Irina Kurlat when she visited her sister in Moscow. This is the temple of Reverend Hermit Marian of Syria in Moscow. And this panel, the weeping phenomena happens with panels. This is about 4.5 feet high, and obviously a depiction of Jesus. So this would be positioned higher up on the wall. I've seen photos of the interior of this church, and it's just packed with paintings lining the walls in the presbytery of devotional figures. And what Irina noticed was light reflecting off of moisture that seemed to be coming from the right eye. This is this is also an icon that was witnessed to be weeping, but there is an event that is connected to this that had it be acknowledged, recognized by the Holy See in the Vatican. This is in the town of Akita in the northernmost coastal region of Japan. And this is their depiction of the Madonna. And the phenomenon was broadcast nationwide. But what was interesting about this was accompanying this was a vision. You've probably heard of visions of the Virgin Mary or Marian apparitions. With this, there was a woman in the religious order. Her name was Sister Sasagawa, and she had a vision of the Virgin Mary. She received communications and experienced a spontaneous healing. She had a hearing impairment, and her hearing was immediately restored after that experience of visions. And so this was acknowledged by the church. And I'm going to connect the story of the visions to the masters of wisdom as we go along. On this map, these are areas in the world where visions of Mary, Marian apparitions, have occurred and have been acknowledged by the church. There are probably more phenomena happening that have not been recorded, but as you can see, it's happening all around the world. The earliest one acknowledged by the church was the miracle of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City, whose feast day happens to be tomorrow, December 12th. Now, phenomena is not limited to Christian tradition. In Muslim communities, a certain phenomena is very popular or very common now. I've done a search online and there's plenty of photos that you can find, so I encourage you to do a search yourself. I don't have the copyright rights to these images, so I'm going to encourage you to do a search. When people slice open a fruit, what the incident, the occurrence that's happening is that they are seeing the seeds spelling out the calligraphic symbol for Allah. And there are many, many images of these. The symbol can show up on the exterior of the fruit in the rind of the fruit. The symbol can show up on the sides of fish that are swimming in fish tanks in households. Can it be photoshopped? Certainly. I encourage you to do your own search and use your intuition and decide for yourself if they're authentic. Another interesting phenomena related to the weeping icons is in a video that was posted to Facebook recently, and we'll share a link to this. For the sake of time, I won't show it here, but it's a delightful video. This is Shirdi Sai Baba, and in a London store there is a large poster of him, framed poster, and in the video, I'm going to assume it's the store owner. It's a store in London, and she is videotaping the image, and you can see rivulets of honey coming down the front of the frame across Sai Baba's face. And Shirdi Sai Baba was a beloved teacher of Hindus and Muslims alike. So I encourage you to check that out. In the footage, you can see people are in and out of the store. They sense the energy. There's a lot of happiness. It's a wonderful video to watch. It probably happened before the pandemic because no one's wearing a mask. It's a lovely video nonetheless. Now, this was an extraordinary event. This is the miracle of the milk drinking statues of Ganesh. And this was phenomenal, probably the largest scale simultaneous miracle phenomena to have occurred yet. Um, but we anticipate an even larger phenomena. I'll talk about that in a little bit. For this phenomena, it started out when the caretaker of a Hindu temple woke up early one morning and had the urge to go into the temple and offer milk with a spoon to the statue of Ganesh. And he did that. I picture him with a spoon in his jug. And when he held the spoon up to the figure, the milk dissipated as if as if Ganesh were drinking the milk, and the word spread like wildfire. And this was originated in India, but what happened was that it was happening simultaneously in multiple countries, in Queens, New York, for as long as 2 months. Government was put to a standstill in India because everyone was running to the temple. It was covered on the news. This was in the late 90s, I think about 96, 98 or so. You may recall that, but that was an extraordinary event. And I've noticed when I do a search on milk drinking Ganesh, it seems to reoccur in different parts of the world periodically. So this is a story very interesting to pay attention to. And Ganesh would drink from the spoons of non-believers as well. This is a photo taken by a friend of mine who witnessed this event in California. Now, I won't talk too much about the Shroud of Turin. It's one of my favorite miracles, but I do want to, this can be a whole show in itself. I bring it up because scientists continue to study the shroud despite the fact that in 1988, radiocarbon dating supposedly determined the cloth was of medieval origin and therefore not the authentic burial cloth of Jesus. The information from Benjamin Creme, again, esoteric author, is that it is an authentic, it is the cloth, the burial cloth, and the image was imprinted on the cloth in a way similar to a photographic process. At the time of resurrection, there was an intense flash of light, intense ionization, just like photography, and that's how the image appeared. But more important than that, I want to mention a quote from Benjamin Creme. He talks about science and religion. He says, they are one and the same. This comes from his book, Maitreya's Mission 3. They are one and the same. The new science will depend on the religious understanding of the laws of life and love. The new religion will depend on what we would more exoterically call science. So in the coming new time, in the coming age of transformation, that schism that we have long seen between science and religion, or science and spirituality, will be lifted. Modern miracles. So these are more recent occurrences, not necessarily containing religious symbols. Some do, but this first one is a cross. These are crosses of light, and these first began appearing in about 1988, 89. What you're looking at is you're looking through a window, obviously, and it's a window of frosted glass, the same kind of glass you would find in a bathroom window, for instance. There is a light source on the other side that might be a street lamp. But what is unique is the refraction of light. And if you were to actually see this, and I have seen similar crosses to this in New York, in San Francisco, here in Seattle. I've seen the most impressive phenomena here in Seattle. It looks holographic. It is brilliant. And these residents in El Monte, California, where the phenomena started or was first noticed, people started to see these crosses and immediately recognized that there was a spiritual aspect to it. There was an experience of seeing them. And soon there were miracle healings. People noticed that conflicts in homes were decreasing. Gang activity was quieting down in the neighborhood. I believe there were 21 crosses in entirety that were discovered in people's homes. And there is a documentary about this. So this is an ongoing miracle. These interesting refractions of light remain in the glass as long as the glass remains in the frame. An interesting anecdote is that here at that time in El Monte in the late 80s, the residents took the pane of glass and took it to the church. And when it was brought to the church, the cross of light disappeared. When the glass was brought back to the home, the cross reappeared. Now, I call this a modern miracle, even though the subject is the Star of Bethlehem, but this will connect to what I will talk about a little bit later about miracle stars. And according to Benjamin Creme, the Star of Bethlehem, depicted as a comet here, was actually spacecraft, a UFO, which actually had a definite purpose on that day. It was leading the wise men to the birth of Jesus. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and its connection to the miracle star. And we'll have a Q&A as well. So if you have questions about that, I will certainly field them. More modern miracles are miracle encounters. Now, this is very interesting. Most of the stories I know about miracle encounters were published in Share International magazine, of which Benjamin Creme was the chief editor. He passed away in 2016, but the work of the magazine continues. It continues to be published, and every month there are miracle stories in every issue. And often they relate miracle encounters with an unusual stranger. And it's not so well known because it's such a personal experience that unless you have a background in what is happening, you may not want to share it. So you may have had this experience yourself. What happens is often it's a brief encounter. Often this takes place in an busy urban area in a city. Someone encounters a stranger. Often it's maybe a homeless person or a young student, and the stranger is perceived as friendly and familiar, often with luminous eyes and a loving countenance. And if there are words exchanged, sometimes there's not. If there are words exchanged, it's typically brief and simple, and yet what is said has a deep meaning for the person experiencing this encounter. And it is so profound for the person that they remember, even though it's incredibly simple. So we'll talk about what those encounters are. Another story of miracle encounters is the story of the Vanishing Hitchiker. Now, this was prevalent in the late 90s in the southeast, in the southern states of the United States, and I also heard a lot of stories coming out of New Zealand. And what would happen is the highway patrol in the area would begin to start receiving unusual reports from drivers, and the descriptions would be oddly consistent. The driver spots a hitchhiker and feels compelled to pull over. The hitchhiker gets into the back seat. They engage in friendly conversation, and then at a certain point, the stranger suddenly says, "Did you know the Christ is in the world?" Upon which the driver glances in the rearview mirror, and suddenly the passenger has vanished. And of course, the driver is so startled that they have to pull over to the shoulder, at which point this draws the attention of the highway patrol, and then the story is given at that point. I also heard this happening out on Long Island in New York when I lived there. And then I will share this. This is a screen grab from YouTube, and this is very, very intriguing. We won't share the link. I'll let you look for the video. I will give this a little warning. It's happening in a very chaotic, violent situation, but it is rather intriguing. This video was captured in the middle of chaos and gunshots during the war in Syria about 5 or so years ago. And a figure robed in white is calmly walking towards an injured man who's lying in the street. He appears to effortlessly lift the man up and carries him to safety towards a group who then take over the care of the man. And as this is happening, frantic bystanders are calling out, "Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, God is great." And it has been reported that these mysterious robed figures walk away without a word after bringing someone into safekeeping and without a spot of blood on their clothing. And according to Benjamin Creme, these rescuers are the masters of wisdom, and even Maitreya himself, Maitreya, the world teacher. And Benjamin Creme calls them the real first responders in any disaster happening in the world, and we can talk about that more. So we will go on to talking about who these masters of wisdom are. But before we can do that, let's talk about more of the source of my information. The Ageless Wisdom teachings are a record, a chronicle, a map of the history of the evolution of consciousness on Earth. And it indicates where we've come from, where we are now, and where we are going. The Ageless Wisdom teachings are an ancient body of knowledge, which typically has been concealed, so to speak, within the great myths and legends throughout time. They are within, they're spoken of metaphorically in the great religious traditions, and even indigenous traditions recount events that symbolize what is contained in the Ageless Wisdom teachings. Humanity is now ready to receive these teachings directly. And at the turn of the 19th century, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was the first to bring to the Western world the fact of the masters of wisdom, the fact of their presence in the world. She represented the preparatory phase. Alice A. Bailey followed up between 1919 and 1949, along with Helena Roerich, and then bringing the information up to date was Benjamin Creme. And I had the privilege of being able to hear Benjamin Creme speak many, many years ago. And so all my information today is derived from his writings and his talks, and hopefully I'm doing justice to what he has shared with the world. So that you could typically find these names at the Theosophical Library. Alice A. Bailey's books are all available online to read. Helena Rorick's books are all available online to read. Some of Benjamin Creme's books are all available online to read. So to understand where we came from, and to understand who the Masters of Wisdom are, we need to understand how the Ageless Wisdom teachings, where we have come from. So fundamental to the teachings is the fact that we are all sparks of a great unknowable intelligence, the source of all that exists, the one many call God or Allah. Essentially, we are divinity. We are spiritual beings. And we are spiritual beings that have made a descent into physical plane matter. Now, as a spark of God, the spark of God, known as the monad, requires a vehicle. And so this is a very simplified diagram that I created, but it essentially describes the basic points. The monad, the spark, requires the soul through which to express. The soul requires a vehicle in order to demonstrate on the physical plane. The soul could not express on the physical plane without the physical body. And you see that figure in the lower corner, the personality in incarnation. And that physical vehicle is made up of the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body. And those are the vehicles through which the soul attempts to express. We return life after life under the law of reincarnation to experience the full spectrum of physical plane life as a human being, in order that the soul can eventually fully express. But on the physical plane, the physical body inhibits the expression of the soul because of the density of the physical plane. And so as we come back life after life after life, we eventually begin to control our physical, our emotional, our mental bodies for the purpose of fully expressing our soul qualities. And that takes hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. We have all lived that many lifetimes to get where we are now. And if you are listening now, you are likely at a good point of in evolution. You've made progress. And the arrows in this diagram are going back up because our journey is also, it's a journey of descent into physical plane matter and a journey of return back to our source. And so the master of wisdom is the one who has completely mastered the physical plane life, mastered the physical, emotional, mental bodies. And you would know that because the master is completely harmless in thought, in word, and in action. That is what it means to be a master. It's not an authoritarian. It is one who has been through the rigors of reincarnation, through all the trials of life. Every master of wisdom knows every shade of anguish, every shade of struggling, every you know, the brilliancy of joy and love and happiness. Anything that a human being can experience, the master of wisdom has experienced. So, and how does one become a master of wisdom? You just keep coming back life after life. The master of wisdom no longer has to incarnate into physical form. They move on from physical plane existence on to greater realms of evolution. But the group of masters that are with humanity have chosen to stay with humanity. They have chosen to aid and guide and inspire us, and so it is a gesture of sacrifice um, and service to remain with Earth humanity. So that is in part what why the masters are here, and the service that they do. And the reason they're emerging into the world today is because we are in the middle of two great epochs, the Age of Pisces and the Age of Aquarius. And for the sake of time, I will be brief here. It is a tremendous transition. We are coming out of an old age, we're moving into a new age. And so the Age of Pisces has created what we have in the world today. The economic system, the political systems are based on the energies of Pisces, the energies of individuality. But the energies of Aquarius are different. They are the energies of synthesis, the energies of cooperation, and the energies of sharing. So it's a clash of different energies happening today. And so we're seeing a lot of division, we're seeing a lot of conflict. The Masters of Wisdom we should know that they are stewards of tremendous energies, planetary, solar, and cosmic energies. They pour these energies into the world, and we are the beneficiaries of these energies, and they create our civilizations age after age. And these energies inspire the leading thinkers of the age in science, the arts, politics, education. Their work creates the culture of the time and helps to move humanity forward. In the last 150 years, we've seen incredible advances in science. That's in response to the stimulation of the masters. The end of colonialism and the movements for democracy in many countries around the world, the civil rights movement, the feminist movement, these were all in response to energies stewarded into our world by the masters of wisdom. And we know this saying, when the student is ready, what happens? The teacher appears. One of the most important things to realize is that the masters of wisdom are here in the world because, one, we have called them into the world, and two, the masters recognize that humanity is ready. The masters responded to our outcry of pain and anguish during World War I and World War II, and the decision was made by Maitreya in June of 1945 to emerge as soon as possible into the modern world. The Masters of Wisdom have known for over 500 years that this moment would come. This is part of their path of evolution to work directly with humanity. But they did not expect to be able to come forward for another 1,200 years. So they are ahead of schedule because of us, because we are ready. And that leads us to talking about the emergence of Maitreya, the world teacher. Maitreya is part of the Masters of Wisdom, also known as the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, the spiritual kingdom. Hierarchy is not meant in hierarchy of power or influence. It means hierarchy of experience. All the masters of wisdom, as I said, have experienced every shade of human life, and they understand deeply what we are going through, even now, even today. And I talked about miracle encounters. I have no doubt that the masters of wisdom are in the hospitals among those who are suffering, especially this year, being present and being of comfort and bringing energies of ease and safety to those who are suffering. And especially Maitreya. Maitreya can be considered the eldest brother of humanity. because he was the first of the human evolution to become a master. He holds the esoteric title of Christ. Now, Christ in the esoteric perspective does not mean the Christian Christ. Christ is an office. And in the same way that president identifies an office. So the Christ sits at the head of the group of the Masters of Wisdom, also known as the Lords of Compassion. And throughout the ages, there have always been traditions that have expected the return of a great teacher. And so Maitreya fulfills the expectations of the Christians who await the return of the Christ. The Jews expect the Messiah. Muslims are awaiting the Imam Mahdi. Hindus expect Krishna. Buddhists are awaiting the Maitreya Buddha. But Maitreya does not identify with those names. He simply wants us to see him as the world teacher. And he is not here to found a new religion. He is not here to seek followers. He is here to inspire and guide us towards creating a foundation of sharing and cooperation in all the structures in our world. Today, the world runs on greed and competition, and we find ourselves, this planet, in peril because we are continuing to run on the Piscean age energies of greed and competition. But that energy is drawing away. And so those structures are losing their hold. And that is reason to have hope. There is room to recreate the world because the structures that exist, whether they're economic or political, are outworn and coming to the end of their the purpose for this world. This is the one event that is most documented of an appearance by Maitreya. This was a phenomenal event in Nairobi, Kenya. Maitreya appeared before a gathering of about 6,000 Christians. He appeared in the garb that would be recognized by the people in the community. Maitreya can appear in many different ways. If he were to appear to you, he may appear differently. But this is how he appeared in Nairobi, Kenya in 1988. It was reported by CNN and reported by news outlets all over the world. It was witnessed by the chief editor of the Kenya Times, who reported that a week before this happened, there was a brilliant star in the sky that was visible during the day. For about 10 or 15 minutes, Maitreya spoke in unaccented Swahili, and the people immediately recognized him as Jesus and called out to him as such. And he disappeared as mysteriously as he had arrived. And the 30 or 40 people surrounding him where he stood experienced spontaneous healings. There are another one of Maitreya's miracles are the healing waters, healing wells of water that have been discovered worldwide, beginning in Tlacote, Mexico, and in Germany, India, and Kenya. Maitreya has appeared to groups, large groups of people, large religious groups of people all around the world. This was in the 90s. And everywhere he appeared, he charged water that would eventually or will eventually be discovered. In Nordenau, Germany, it's in a tiny town of, I don't know, less than 1,000 people. It's a former mining town. And within the mountain, they discovered water with healing qualities. And many people visit there, filling jugs of water, and they document the healings that take place. This was discovered in the early 90s, and it is still operating fully with people visiting every day. But a total of 777 sources of healing water will be found over time, which will transform, according to Benjamin Creme, the health of humanity. Now, I said that Maitreya is not here to found a new religion. Well, what is he here to do? He is here, first of all, to inspire us to remake our world. His first task is to inspire us to end all hunger in the world, and to address basic human rights for all people. We have the violence and division in the world because we do not address these basic needs. And these are not foreign to us because years ago, I believe it was 1948, Article 25 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. And so these are not unknowns to us. However, we have not addressed even the basic needs of people. 2/3 of the world's population is scrambling for basic resources, while 1/3 of the world's population is hoarding and wasting resources. So that is Maitreya's priority, is to address these basic human rights. And Maitreya says, my plan is to show you that the way out of your problems is to listen again to the true voice of God within your hearts, to share the produce of this most bountiful of worlds among your brothers and sisters everywhere. And that says it all. That is why Maitreya and the masters are here in the world, to help us to do that. Now, Maitreya and the masters are in the process of full public emergence into the world. They have not stepped forward completely. They are working actively. They work 24 hours a day as first responders, as I mentioned earlier, but and also managing these great energies that are pouring into the world. They work constantly. They do not sleep. But until the time that Maitreya presents himself to the world, we do have access to his help. And in 2001, this miracle phenomena, the hand of Maitreya, first appeared in Barcelona. This is an image photographed from a mirror, and it is a handprint. And this is something that has since then been appearing all over glass surfaces and mirrors all around the world. Check your mirrors and computer monitors before you wipe anything valuable off. Just by looking at this image or visualizing it, you can invoke the energies of Maitreya. We will post a link to where you can print out a copy of this image. And there, of course, have been healing experiences associated with this image. This is another miracle phenomena. I see it everywhere here in Seattle when the sun is out. And this is a phenomena in collaboration with the Space Brothers. Now, the story of UFOs and Space Brothers is a whole nother topic, but it is related to Maitreya's emergence. And these are actual reflections off of glass. But what is unique is the refraction of light. These are called circles of light, and you can see this is one kind of pattern. There are many kinds of patterns, like the crosses of light that I showed earlier. When you see these in real life, they're quite brilliant. They're very unique. I've seen the numbers of this phenomena increase here in Seattle, so I know they're in your neighborhood as well. You might not see it if you're in a very, very rural area, but go to where buildings are close together. And to relate this back to the Star of Bethlehem, this is, I think this is the last miracle we will talk, well, there's the second to last, the miracle star. Right now in the skies, there are 4 stars. They are literally, they look like stars, but they are literally spacecraft manned by our space brothers, primarily from Venus, space brothers and sisters. They move through the sky like a star. They flash multiple lights. I see this anytime the sky is clear, as it might be tonight. It looks very clear. In the northeastern sky, I see at least one of these. You'll see changing lights, flashing. It's like a twinkling star, but it's, again, I use the term holographic. There's a different experience when you see it. These are spacecraft the size of 4 football fields. And our friends on other planets know of this extraordinary event of the emergence of Maitreya, the world teacher, and the masters of wisdom. They are aware of the crisis that our world is facing environmentally, socially, economically, and they are quietly awaiting the time to step forward to help us. But in the meantime, there are subtle symbols of their presence and their loving concern. This is a very positive sign. But this corresponds to the Star of Bethlehem and is definitely meant to be a symbol for the new time and the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters. Maitreya, since from the time of 2010, has been interviewed on major national media. Between 2010 and 2014, it began right after the Haitian earthquake in January of 2010. Maitreya has been interviewed first in the United States. There were a number of interviews, then Mexico, Brazil, and Russia. And he, up to the point of 2014, completed 130 interviews, but did not identify himself as Maitreya. He spoke as an ordinary man, very likely speaking about sharing, justice, and redistribution of the world's resources. And this is another phase of Maitreya's emergence to raise awareness about the urgency for transforming how we relate to each other in the world through politics and economics. Again, sharing and justice. So this is working up to the ultimate miracle. That's my term. The day of declaration. That is the day where Maitreya, with the help of the satellite connections and communications, will appear before the world. Prior to that, there will be a major press conference, which will ready us, and we will know when to tune in. On the day of declaration, Maitreya will present himself and present his concerns to the world. And I will let Benjamin Creme describe what will happen on the day of declaration. You may want to turn up your volume a little bit. Here we go.
On the day of declaration, to get back to that, he will, I don't know how long it will take, maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes, something, 40 minutes, something like that. He will not speak.
Pardon me?
Not say a word, but his thoughts, his ideas will be heard inwardly, telepathically, by everybody in the world, everybody above the age of 14. So If you're 14, you're Slovenian, you'll hear him in Slovenian. If you're Russian, you'll hear him in Russian. Americans in American, English in English, French in French, Dutch in Dutch, and so on. He will come into telepathic rapport with every adult in the world, and each of us will hear him inwardly, telepathically, in our own language. So you will hear him as if he's speaking directly to you, which in a sense he is. He thinks what he's wanting to say, and our brains will simply translate that into Slovenian, French, Dutch, German, Spanish, whatever. He will give a kind of account of the long history of humanity, show how old we are, from what a height, a spiritual height we have descended into this materiality of today, endangering the very future of the species, and at the same time showing the future, what it can be like if we just accept that we're brothers and sisters of one humanity. We can create a civilization based on that, which will take us, as he puts it, to the very stars. And the masters will give to humanity their insight, their wisdom, their age-old wisdom and experience and knowledge, and stimulate and galvanize humanity into creating the most brilliant civilization.
And that is Benjamin Creme's description of the day of declaration. And that is a day that is coming. However, we don't have to wait for that day to come.
On the day of declaration, to get back,
we can talk about how you can play a part in the emergence of Maitreya, the world teacher, and the masters of wisdom. The easiest and most powerful thing you can do that you can start immediately is to participate in transmission meditation. This is the most powerful meditation you can do for yourself and for the world. And you do this by participating in groups that are currently meeting online due to the pandemic. And transmission meditation is only done in groups. It's not an individual meditation, which is why, in part, it is very powerful. And it's certainly in the spirit of the Age of Aquarius to be working in groups. Anything where you are participating with a group is receiving the energies of the Age of Aquarius, where you're working for justice, where you're working for the health of your community. That group is receiving the energies of the Age of Aquarius. If you work alone, you will not receive those energies. So always think about working in a group. So I'm going to close with a beautiful quote from one of the masters of wisdom about sharing and cooperation and the miracles that will come about when we bring that about on a global scale. The master says, when men cooperate rather than compete, they will find a magic potion entering their lives. The ease with which long-lasting problems will be solved will astonish. The impossible will yield to the lightest touch. And through cooperation alone, men will learn the true art of living. One thing that I want to mention that I didn't mention earlier, I had talked earlier about Marian apparitions, the visions of the Virgin Mary, and that is actually a phenomenon generated by the masters of wisdom, specifically one master, the master who was the Madonna, who was the mother of Jesus. She is now a very, very advanced master. She is behind many of the miracle phenomena associated with the Virgin Mary all around the world. And oftentimes the visions begin by her appearing to children. I would say the ones to pay attention to, there's lots of stories out there, the ones to pay attention to are the ones where she's appearing to large groups. So that is one detail I wanted to share about how the masters work in the world. Back in the late 80s and 90s, a common question was, how do we know Maitreya is not the Antichrist? And so from the ageless wisdom perspective, the Antichrist energy, well, the Antichrist is not a person, but an energy. And it's an energy of destruction that is necessary in order to clear the way for the new time, to clear the old structures, to make way for the new dispensation. So the expression of the Antichrist energy, so to speak, in this time, it manifested through World War I and World War II and the Axis powers. And the effect of that, I mean, we know the effect of war, but the effect of that was to clear away, clear out the systems of monarchy and colonialism to make way for the burgeoning democracy. Now, certainly we, because of the way the world is today, we see democracy in words, but not in deeds. We have a lot more to do before there is real democracy in the world, but it certainly is we have the help of the masters and Maitreya to make true democracy and true justice and true freedom a reality all around the world.
From David, who asks, what else can we as citizens of the planet do to help advance the stated priorities of Maitreya and the masters in our everyday lives and actions?
Great question. I think so many people in the world are already responding to the energies of Maitreya, and we saw that this year in the way in which people went into the streets standing up for racial justice. That is a response to the energies of Aquarius. I know so many activists who put aside personal comfort, their personal aspirations to stand for justice, to stand for the people who are not able to have a voice. And so those are the things you can do. If you're not able to go out in the streets or you're not comfortable doing that, again, I mentioned transmission meditation, but anything you can do to support the organizations that are standing up for Maitreya's priorities, ending hunger, ending homelessness, fighting for affordable housing. There are a myriad of things to do. We don't have to wait for anyone to tell us that the time is now to stand up for human rights.
Well, Vincent asks, I have been hearing he is going to become present soon for years. Is there a general time he's expected? I assume that means Maitreya's emergence.
Well, we all wish he wish he would emerge as soon as possible, and I can certainly understand people's frustration. I mentioned earlier that the masters did not expect to be able to begin the process of entering into the modern world, into direct relationship with humanity for another 1,200 years, 1,500 years. Is there a time frame? There are so many elements involved in, as I understand it, I don't know any more than Judy, Camille, and Jim. We're all very active volunteers in making this information known. But there are so many elements of factors that Maitreya has to weigh. There are energetic factors. There are windows of opportunity that become available energetically and then close. And so Maitreya has to monitor so many different aspects of what is taking place in the world, what is taking place energetically. I'm simplifying it, but again, Maitreya is in the world. In my mind, there's nothing to wait for. So when we are in the streets chanting, no, no justice, no peace, that is you're saying something on behalf of those who can't say it, and that is the work of that's moving us forward into the age of Aquarius. The people who are holding on to the old forms, who are fighting against change, that is not a, you can do that, but you're working against your own interests. The change is moving towards a collective healing of the planet, and anything we can do for that now will help Maitreya and the masters emerge sooner.
And I just want to say that I can appreciate that question, because, many of us feel the same way, especially what's going on in the world. We say, well, if not now, when? But again, as Cielito was saying, that, it's very difficult because we live in quote time, but the masters don't. And so what our concept of time is and how short something is very different from theirs. And they have to look at all the different things that are going on in the energetic concepts that Cielito was talking about for the proper time, the most effective time to emerge. But we should know they are here. Many of them are here. It isn't as if they haven't emerged yet. I think what we're talking about is maybe when is the day of declaration going to happen? And that, I guess, will be at his, when he thinks and the masters think is the right time to emerge, to experience that day of declaration.
And in the meantime, we can experience the energies of the masters and Maitreya through transmission meditation. That's a way to work directly with them, to aid them, to be of service to humanity. There's no charge. It just requires a commitment of time. It's said that 1 year of consistent transmission meditation is equal to as many as 15 or 30 years of personal meditation. And why do we want to meditate? Because the more we meditate, the more we connect with our soul. The more we connect with our soul, the more we're able to demonstrate the qualities of the soul. Why do we want to demonstrate the qualities of the soul? Because we become more who we are, and life is transformed when we are truly who we are, and the qualities of the soul bring about transformation. So please share that with your friends, especially as we close out 2020. It's a message of hope, and in the spirit of sharing, we want to keep spreading a message of hope. Thank you so much.